Hey, folks, it's 3 o'clock. I'm not sure if you have volume on, but I can't hear anyone on my end.
I can hear you, Commissioner Barfield.
I guess y'all just being very quiet there. It must be.
Well, unfortunately, I'm like you. I'm remote. I think we hear each other, but.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everyone. We had not started the recording. We have been on mute. We are still waiting for Judy Justice and Larry Owens. But in the interest of time, it's 3:05, so I'll leave it to the board, whether they want to go ahead and convene the meeting or wait another minute.
I say let's get going because I got things to do.
All right, we'll do that. I guess I need to take roll, Amy, right?
Yes, please.
Does I have roll? Well, I can see some names. I see somebody familiar. There we go. All right, let's do a roll call real quick. We'll start with, do we do everybody here or just members?
Just the members.
Okay, so we'll start with the easy ones. Rob Zappel here. We'll start with myself, Neil Anderson. I'm obviously here. Kevin Spears.
I'm here.
Perfect. Jonathan Barfield.
I'm here.
Judy Justice. Not accounted for. Pete Littlebear, or Bear, how do you say that? I think he had let us know he would not be present.
Correct.
And then Larry Owens, also absent. All right, we'll call the meeting to order then. And first item of business, it looks like selection of officers. I don't know, Amy, remind me, could be anyone on the committee, or what's kind of the.
So first of all, can everyone hear us okay that's on Zoom?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate everybody's time. This is a little bit of a unicorn commission, as I call it, because you all meet as called, and so you have not met in a year and a half. Your last meeting was February 2021. You meet on an as-needed basis as desired by the commission members, but you are in need of your first meeting of a new year to elect officers, and the two officers as authorized in the power and authority of the Legion Stadium Commission is a chair and a vice chair. And so I would ask the past chair, Neil Anderson.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know who my vice chair is.
The last time we met, again, a year and a half ago, vice chair was Jonathan Barfield.
Hey, Jonathan, good to see you, buddy. My vice chair. All right. Okay. Well, chair. Oh, should I open ahead? Your comments?
No, I just started to move it along. I'd like to make a motion that we carry forth the existing chair and vice chair into the new session. Yourself and Commissioner Barfield as chair and vice chair.
So we have a nomination. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right. All those in favor? Do I got to go roll call?
You do, but was that Commissioner Barfield, was that you that seconded that?
No, that was me.
Oh, it's Kevin.
Spears.
Councilman Spears, sorry about that, thank you.
Okay, so I'll do a quick roll call. Start with Rob Zappel,
Yes.
Jonathan Barfield,
Yes, yes.
Kevin Spears,
Yes.
Neil Anderson, aye. So that is unanimous for everyone here.
Okay, so.
Moving along, action item that Amy has on the menu today is the expiration of the interlocal agreement related to athletic facilities between the city of Wellington, New Hanover County Board of Education, and New Hanover County. I will let Amy produce the details surrounding that.
Thank you, Councilman Anderson. I will overview this item, and although I do have this labeled as an action item, I'm not recommending that the commission request a vote on this today. My intention was to overview the item and allow the commission members to take the information back to their respective boards and commissions that they are representing, and to reconvene the Legion Stadium Commission, hopefully very soon, to make a recommendation on renewal of the interlocal agreement. And just as a reminder to everyone, this interlocal agreement, which was initially entered into in 1996, is among the City of Wilmington, New Hanover County, and the County Board of Education. And with respect to the fact that the city and the county each have athletic facilities that each other's constituents would use from time to time, this commission was established to provide governance over scheduling and capital improvement recommendations for Legion Stadium, as well as provisions to allow the constituents of each of the boards to allow for use of other facilities, so all other high school and middle school and elementary schools, to the extent that they have athletic facilities, for the citizens, and provide a framework for that. And essentially, use of those respective facilities are provided for free, with the exception of a facility attendant. Some of the additional provisions in the interlocal agreement, which was last amended in 2013, provided for use of New Hanover High School of the Legion Sports Complex fields as the priority use, and it allows for up to 70% of the school's annual total use of those facilities shall be allocated to New Hanover High School. Additionally, another key provision is that the city shall receive from the schools maintenance and janitorial fee support for the operation of Legion Stadium. Maintenance to Legion Stadium practice field and Hardy Field in 2013 was established at $45,614, and janitorial services at $48,000, subject to consumer price index. The current fiscal year, the city has invoiced the school system for $100,531 for those maintenance and janitorial services. The reason that and again, those are just the key provisions. I believe everybody's in receipt of a copy of this agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions as to details of the contract. But essentially, in addition to those priorities, the Legion Stadium Commission has the power and authority to recommend scheduling and capital improvement recommendations for Legion Stadium. The agreement expires June 30th, 2022, which corresponds with the retirement of debt that was issued for the last major set of renovations to Legion Stadium and Buck Hardy Field, which took place in 1999 and 2000. And so as there in an exhibit to that agreement, you can see the last principal and interest payment is due in the amount of $133,250. So staff's recommendation from the city side, and I will ask my counterparts at the county, from Tara Duckworth, Director of Parks and Gardens, and we have Eddie Anderson here, Assistant Superintendent for New Hanover County Schools, to provide their recommendation. City's recommendation is that the agreement be extended. I would like for staff to produce some information before the commission elects to vote on renewal, in terms of if we could get some analysis on like expenditures for other New Hanover County high school facilities, acknowledging the fact that some of Legion's facilities perhaps go above and beyond the typical standard, because we do have professional teams that from time to time have agreements to play at Legion Sports Complex. So a like to like on maintenance expenditures, as well as dedicated man hours, in order to examine whether the current fees that the city's invoicing the school system for, to the extent possible, can be analyzed to match those. I would also make a suggestion that the Legion Stadium Commission make an annual report to the Wilmington City Council, New Hanover County Commissioners, and New Hanover County School Board on capital needs. And I'm happy to answer questions later on in the conversation after my counterparts speak as to the cost estimates for current capital needs at the stadium. There's a lot, and I just think it would be helpful if on an annual basis, the larger bodies that you represent hear those needs in order for those to remain on the radar and hopefully make it into respective capital project budgets. So with that, if there's not any questions from the commission, I'll ask for other staff to speak.
I do have a question, Amy, in regards to other groups that are utilizing the fields there. Are they paying their commensurate share that would offset costs for local governments?
There's one other long-term user currently at Legion Sports Complex, and that's the Wilmington Sharks at the Buck Hardy Field complex. Their agreement is $15,000 a year.
I don't know, we all
It's
moved
per
it.
game. It's right now it's $655 per game.
Which translates to around 15,000 annually.
It's a little more.
So the Sharks currently pay $650 per game. Extrapolated out is probably between $15,000 and $16,000 based on total average games. That last contract was approved by the Legion Stadium Commission. We're currently renewing that agreement with similar terms. There's no other current long-term user at any of the facilities.
So I guess based on those numbers, you said 15 to 16,000?
Right, and so their season is essentially 2 months long. I would say they typically play around 28 games, and they start at the end of May, and unless they make it deep into the playoffs, their season's complete by the end of June.
So I assume that's costing us money then, correct?
Well, that's costing the city money. It's all costing the city money, both the school use and the private use. But to your point, we're not recovering fees.
how is post 10 held? Or is it 10, whatever, post?
Post 10, per the interlocal agreement, does not pay towards anything into the.
They're on a similar season. Right.
So like there was a football game this Saturday at Legion Stadium. Are groups like that paying a fair price to utilize the fields?
Carolina Bengals.
Yeah, they're paying 8, so there is a semi-pro, I guess that's how we would categorize them, football team that started their last season, and they're paying $850 per game for an average of
4 games.
four games annually.
Per season. Spring and fall.
8 games annually, 8 games annually.
The reason I asked those questions, I know you mentioned, dividing, make sure that costs are divided amongst the schools and whatnot, looking at what it costs for other school athletic fields and just trying to make sure that other folks that are coming in that are utilizing the facility is also a part of that equation.
Understood.
All those contracts, as I recall, they all come through us first, right?
The multi-year agreements
Yeah.
come through the commission, the shorter contracts, for example, the Bengals have not come through the commission.
And you base that one off of what, the soccer prior when it was in the football stadium?
Yes, well, the city has a fee schedule, that has, one-off uses and what that costs. If you're gonna play, more than once or have an event more than once, then we allow for a negotiation that's a little bit less, but yeah, based off of the last user and whatever the market is commanding.
Sure. Rob, it's cool. I forget I'm the chair.
It's like, need a badge.
Yeah.
Maybe what's the shortfall annually right now? And you referred to it, it's not keeping up. Do you have a number of how much the city is losing at this point for the maintenance?
That's a difficult number to acquire because the city's athletics facilities maintenance budget is one line that covers all of our sites. So Godwin, Robert Strange, Olson, et cetera. I think your budget's probably the same.
That's what I wrote down. It's gonna be a little difficult to put that together.
The other part is just the facility itself, too. I don't know about pools and tennis courts, the stuff there, I don't think. The rest of these parties are, that's all ours.
That is all on us,
Our
and
baby.
that is in a separate budget.
Right. Well,
So we're just talking about the fields here right now.
baseball, football, and parking.
Yeah.
I'll say football, lacrosse, soccer.
And it's
Amy.
Right?
It is.
Amy.
Mr. Spears?
Yeah, I got a question about the last time we met, we talked about renovations at Buck Hardy Field. Can we get an update on that?
Yes, the last time we met, the commission did not move to recommend to the respective bodies to appropriate funding that the Sharks owner was asking for cost sharing on improvements. Those improvements, as well as improvements that the city has identified just for general upkeep and maintenance, are in a submitted project to the city's capital program, but is currently unfunded and unprogrammed. I was going to speak to that a little bit when we get to new business, but I'm happy to answer more questions.
Well, that's fine.
about it
That's
now.
fine. That's fine. It just, this talk kind of sparked that brain cell to inquire about that. So if we can talk about it further down the agenda, that's okay.
But that
Thank
does,
you.
I think your question maybe does go back to my point that because this commission meets so infrequently, I do think it would be helpful for there to be a provision, if this agreement is renewed, to require an annual report that the city can develop, but that the commission endorses that the city, the county, and the school board can bring to their respective bodies that these are the capital needs, so it's on somebody's radar, which my opinion right now is that it's not.
Well, I mean, I agree with, I mean, we hear from, everybody we're all involved with, I mean, us, the convention center, when we're, all your different investments in parks, I think, I'm trying to think, we hear from the CFQA, you can kind of get a state of the nation, and it keeps top of mind when it comes to budget talk, so. I'm like that idea, and did you want to give your counterparts?
Yes,
opportunity?
please.
Tara, you go first.
Well, thank you. Sorry, I'm remote today, but I don't know that I probably can give much of a report. I think we were just kind of wanting to meet today to find out exactly what it is you would need. Amy, I concur. I think it would be very helpful for the entire board to get a report on the Legion Stadium Commission and what their priorities are for the year. Because I think that's been our challenge, is just we're kind of having to respond as things pop up. So I think that would certainly help from a staff perspective to know what the priorities are going to be for the year and know what we need to approach the commissioners and the manager's office with.
Tara, have there been any conversations with the county manager on extension of the agreement at all, either as written or with any changes?
No, not really at this point.
Eddie, you want to jump in? I'm sorry, I should speak up. Eddie, would you like to speak in? Speak up and address
Thank you,
that.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'll get used to it. It'll be time to quit.
I don't have a whole lot to add. Amy and I've been kind of going through this, and I can certainly try to put together. I know our annual athletic field contract is their proposal is broken down per venue. So beyond that. There may be some things we can pull together through our work order system. Breaking down the complete maintenance cost per one of our athletic facilities will be difficult. But the field maintenance contract is probably the most expensive of those, down along with lighting, but we have lighting on. So I'll be glad to try to pull that together, and I'll share that with you, share it with everyone in the commission. And we haven't gone to the board with this. We've discussed it with senior staff, just making them aware that it's getting ready to expire, and beyond that, we haven't shared it with the board.
Would you have, I'm just thinking example, a bleacher seat is say the screws rust, it breaks, whatever, what have you. You have a PO system that would trace that without moving heaven and earth? I mean, because that's the kind of thing we're just trying to figure out. Okay, how do you want to kind of get the same treatment at the stadium, and it's primarily just to keep it safe, for the athletes and the folks in.
We have specific annual contracts, some, to inspect the lighting, inspect the bleachers. We do those, bleachers inside and outside. So if it's on a specific contract service agreement, then, we could pull that cost. Work orders are tagged to the school. You would have to dig down into the description of the work order to see, where in the school, if it was, maybe if it was bleachers, if it was inside or outside.
Or if there's a way y'all can keep that going forward, code it or something, because I do know.
Yeah.
I've seen our student section, I've seen Hoggarts, and they're equally as, rabid. And when they're standing and jumping around, whether we like it or not, it tends to, tear things up over time. So just that kind of thing is, I think, kind of what we're trying to, it's not like we're asking for, we just want to make sure it's kind of similar calls for y'all. And heck, you might find out, I don't know what we find out, to be honest with you. Just curious.
Well, I can definitely look into it. Like I said, some of those will be, if it's an annual service contract, it'll be fairly easy. The big ticket item is the athletic field maintenance contract. When we get down into individual work orders, we're switching our work order system over now to something that gives us a little more robust, gives us a little more ability to hopefully do some things like this.
I guess some things just top of mind, maybe, like, I don't know, scoreboard, they get donated, or new PA system, or whatever, I don't know, just kind of.
Yeah, if it was a capital improvement that was funded in the last couple of years, there was a specific contract for that, then we can easily do our contract.
So Eddie, is most of the work then externally contracted and there's not very much, is there any internal staffing?
Other than what the coaches do, and they're very particular about their fields, they put
And
a
they
lot of
spend a lot of
time.
time.
And, yeah, so that, I don't know, I'd have to check and see if they receive some sort of stipend for that. But I know they spend a lot of time preparing the fields for events and taking care of the fields during the season, getting prepared for the season.
Okay. So athletic field maintenance is all contracted out. Going back to some things I think that Councilman Anderson was saying. So say a toilet breaks, is that the school just taking that from a pot of money that they have?
And they would, if a toilet were to break, they would submit a work order. They'd go in our system, be assigned to the plumbing shop, they'd go out and fix it. And depending on, how detailed that description and how it's identified, if it's an athletic facility, it may be, I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to identify all of this. But if it says Hogger football stadium on it, then that's easy enough.
Sure.
We can certainly search things like that.
But let's see, at those schools, how do they do with, not having the turf? Do they play, they use other fields for JV? How do they?
Well, we try to preserve the stadium field as much as possible for competition events, and then use practice fields for practice.
But like actual contests, like, I don't know, the JV sports come to mind. They play in the stadium.
They do.
Okay.
That's why, and then you're looking at boys and girls sports.
Oh, yeah.
It's,
You don't get paid that big.
our-
I have two kids.
yeah. Those fields take a beating.
And so do the coaches line the fields?
They do.
Okay. So the athletic field maintenance is basically the mowing and topsoil and fertilizer and all that, or top dressing, I would say, but then like day of game in terms of lining the field, running the field, all of that, those are coaches that are doing that. So maybe, that not so much with Legion Stadium any longer because it's got painted lines and it's synthetic. We're still doing that type of thing on other fields with city staff. So I wonder if there's any appetite or thought among the commission of, do we look at that any differently? And let's examine whether they get a stipend for that, where that money's coming from, because I would say that Billy's, so our athletic facilities maintenance staff spends a good deal of time at Buck Hardy Field, readying those for games and so forth. And so as an apples to apples, Auburn's coach is doing that instead of. Right.
Well, I would think anything.
Godwin. So we have, so Williston plays at Robert Strange Park, which is covered under the covenants of this agreement. New Hanover High School softball plays at Godwin, another city facility. So we have paid city staff that's doing all that, you know, game day, you're going out there, making sure the field's lined, the bases are out and all that stuff. So
I don't think anything that can help us get back to apples on, it's a public, you know, city, it's worth taking a look at. We can, you know, plus or minus a little bit, but sure.
Yeah, if, maybe if you could put together the same thing in terms of budget for the athletic fields, and I'll do that, and then we can start there by just comparing the two.
And just to make sure I got it, and, make this clear, the end goal is to come up with a number that's related directly to Legion Stadium. And then we can parse that out to the 3 different members of this commission. Is that where we're headed with this?
right, yeah, Legion Stadium as well as the other facilities that we just mentioned, they're also covered. So essentially, every athletic facility that the city and the county owns are covered by this agreement. But when this agreement was executed in 1996, the city was using school facilities much more than they are now. We're down to maybe 12 hours out of the year where we're using school athletic facilities, whereas in 1996, all of the city's adult softball league was using school facilities. So, you know, we may come back to you with, you know, it's fine to, I think we can go ahead and leave that language in here. It's not harming anybody because nobody's using it right now, but could we stay and use it in the future? Might as well keep it in here. I don't think it'll give anybody heartburn, but yeah, what we're really trying to get to, number one, does this commission want to renew the agreement? Number two, if they do want to renew the agreement, are there any substantial changes that they want to make? And so from a city staff perspective, what is, I think, a priority for staff to take to city council ultimately, which this group would have to recommend, is the current number that we're getting for maintenance and janitorial from the schools the right number, a fair number? And do we want to look at any changes in terms of, let's look at how many man hours the city is putting in on maintaining these fields, readying them for game day, versus if that's all being done by coaches because they want to, or maybe they get a stipend. And these guys are the same people that are responsible for all the other facilities not used by the schools and used by city residents, for example, or softball leagues. How do we want to look at making the best use of resources?
I think what I was asking is we're trying to get to a 2022 number.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you're right, and you also clarified something. I did not realize the purview of this commission extends beyond Legion Stadium. You're saying to these other facilities as well. That was my own.
The interlocal agreement does, the authority of the Legion Stadium Commission shall be to make recommendations for a capital improvement program for Legion Stadium to achieve the objectives of the agreement. The recommendations for the capital improvement program shall be based on available funds and recommended by the advisory board. 2, make long-term recommendations concerning long-term license agreements for the use of Legion Stadium. And 3, make recommendations concerning the future use and ownership of Legion Stadium. So that's the purview of the commission that starts on page 2, item number 2. But because there are other objectives and responsibilities in the interlocal, we as a city and the county, from an administrative standpoint, to make sure we're in agreement.
The agreement kind of hits on anything that we're if the high school is using a city facility, basically. For the commission, we just focus on those 2 venues. Is that accurate? Is that something?
In a nutshell, that simplifies it.
Well, I didn't realize that the schools were utilizing city parks. I was under the impression that the county was maintaining most of the sports field for the schools. And, you know, any additional charge to the schools is really going to impact the county as well as they'll probably be using county dollars to fund those expenses. So it's best to have that conversation on the front end, especially considering the fact that we're in the process of finalizing our budget for next year, number one. If there's going to be any additional expenses to the schools, the county, for the most part, will end up bearing those in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I know that I was on the commission when we crafted an agreement to put the artificial turf at Legion Stadium. It was split a third, a third, and a third. But again, I was not aware that the schools were utilizing, city facilities and paying a fee for those.
They're not paying a fee to use those, so under the existing interlocal, we cannot charge one another for the use of the facilities. We can charge each other an attendance fee. And then for Legion Stadium specifically in 2013, the agreement was amended for the city to invoice the schools to contribute to janitorial and maintenance. We do not currently invoice the schools or the county for the schools' use of Robert Strange Park for Williston or Godwin for New Hanover High School. And we're not recommending that we start doing that. We do just want to make sure that, because the maintenance of those facilities is coming out of the city's budget and the specific beneficiary is the schools, we may want to examine how much we're spending on that to see if that, just like we're doing for Legion, invoicing for cost sharing of maintenance, whether we want to try and do that for the other facilities as well.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Amy, have we covered that enough for you, or you need more information?
I think the direction that I'm hearing is that you would like for the city to come back after an analysis, which the schools will help us complete, is to get a 2022 number that we suggest for the commission to recommend for renewal of the agreement. I have not heard any other key provisions that anyone's interested in. So if that's the case, then we would just bring back a new number and perhaps apply a new maintenance number for the other two facilities that the schools are saying.
Do you know how the current maintenance number, the 45,614, how that was determined?
I don't, which is the reason why I'm suggesting let's perform an analysis. I don't know how scientific that was, so
Yeah.
I would like for us to, provide a methodology to it.
I think, Amy, also to your original question, which is, do we want to continue with the agreement? I think overall, my fear is that this analysis takes longer till we get past the expiration date of this, and to avoid a panic phone call from your office. I think we are all in agreement that we want the agreement to continue. It's just a matter of working out the details, in this case, the financial arrangement. Jonathan, you hear me? You in agreement with that from the county side?
Can you repeat that, Rob? The last part?
Basically, just saying, in principle, we want to move ahead with the agreement, with the details to be worked out. The question that Amy asked at the very beginning of this is, do we want to stop the agreement or move forward? I think from the county standpoint, I would say we want to move forward with it so that she knows when we get to the expiration date, which is coming up, when we say June 30th. June 30th. We may not have the financial analysis complete by June 30th, but overall, we would like to continue with the agreement.
I agree.
I see we have Deputy City Manager Tom Moten joining us now, and I won't ask him to play attorney, but I do think that we can, if the analysis isn't complete to everyone's comfort level to where we have an official recommendation to renew the agreement, I think that we are still able to allow the play to go forward.
at Legion and the other facilities until such time we renew the agreement.
Amy, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Either that or a provision where we can have a month-to-month just extension, like we do with a number of our contracts until a new one's executed. We can all look into that. But the longest short of it is we anticipate that the school will need to continue using the facility, and we're ready to work together on that.
Thank you.
Good name. Okay. Sarah?
Would we charge him the $35,000 I think we would, we would continue on a month basis with no changes until we come with a new agreement.
With the goal of that being so.
Yes. I don't know about you, Eddie, I don't anticipate it taking that long.
I don't think so. I don't think.
Everybody disagreed after hearing everybody's BS.
No, I don't think our part will, but you know, when you try to, you know, Amy and I may be ready to make a recommendation, but then when you start paired up with the city council agenda, the county commissioner agenda, the board of education agenda, I mean, that could take a while.
Right. Why just be, you know, over the summer.
All right, want to move on, Amy? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, number 4 is old business. Do you have anything we need to revisit, Amy?
I do not.
What about, trying to think, do we have some stuff we're just waiting on? Do we have some stuff, work done on there already, or we're just waiting on that?
No, I have some new business
Okay.
items.
Just a different category.
Yes.
Okay, new business then.
I do. So the city is needing to engage in some capital improvements in the short term and in the long term. And as the spirit of the commission has been the last few years, in terms of willingness to cost share, I want to, at our next meeting, request a vote on some cost sharing items that the city is soon going to be engaging in. One is a sort of emergency repair to the HVAC system in the field house. And so that is the building that is at the north end of the stadium, where there are locker rooms and showers for primarily football players, but it also is utilized by baseball, soccer, and lacrosse. And the air conditioning went out last summer. The city's public services department advertised a bid to replace the HVAC system. We first looked at repair, and then we looked at replace of existing, neither of which can be done because doing so would not meet today's code. So they issued a bid to get a new HVAC system that would include work like exterior fencing and roof truss repairs. It ended up, the low bid came in at $85,000, so that bid was rejected. Staff has come up with an alternative solution that would be to purchase 2 units that could be relocated, moved around, and connect via temporary ductwork. And between the electrical work and the units, the cost estimate for this option is $20,000. And should the field house be demolished and a new field house built, as that structure is obsolete and is one of the capital projects currently submitted to the city CIP, we would still be able to utilize this HVAC system in a future building.
And so that, again, the cost estimate for that is approximately $20,000. There's an additional project that is being negotiated with a vendor right now to, looks like it'll cost around $187,000. And that is to repair falling stucco off of the facade of the stadium. There's water leakage issues where water's leaking through the stadium seats, falling into the concourse below, and eventually entering into offices. And so that project would waterproof, seal joints, and replace old material. And so it's a safety project. And again, that's probably looking at coming in around $187,000. Again, going back to my comments at the beginning of this meeting, this board does not meet very often. The last meeting was a year and a half ago, so I don't feel comfortable having you all coming here cold and asking you to vote on something. So want to introduce the material to you, have you take it back to your managers and perhaps your boards. And then I'd like to reconvene this group relatively soon and ask at that time that you would consider a vote on cost sharing of those repairs.
Tara, if you could brief Chris and his team, that would be great.
Any questions?
Amy, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
Amy,
Rob.
thanks. Amy, both of these issues here that you're talking about have to be done. The safety issue of the stucco falling, that's not, there's no question about it. It's got to get done. And I don't see how you can be in that field house without HVAC in the months from June through September. It would be unbearable and unhealthy on top of it. So both of these have got to be done. When you're talking about, you've got the bids in, we just take the bids and divide them by 3. Is that how you figure the financial responsibility?
I would look to one of the commission members to make a motion, but I appreciate your comments, and the way these projects would get paid for absent this commission is it comes out of the city's overall buildings revolving capital project, the needs of which the funding obviously isn't there to meet all of them. I don't know how many city council meetings Mr. Anderson has sat through about replacing various chillers and air conditionings across the city, more than we can count. So we do know that there are safety factors and they need to get done, and they will get done and be paid for by the public services operating budget. But like I said at the beginning, in the spirit of the way this group has worked together over the past few years to cost share on items, that's what we would want to present to the board as an option. And I would leave it to you to, make a motion on how that is divided. Deputy Manager Moten also oversees the Public Services Department, so I'll see if he has any additional comments to make or clarifications.
Well, Amy, the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost.
Right, again, so we are prepared to move forward. One of the projects has already been bid and bids received. We're just negotiating. Public Services is negotiating with the low bidder. And the other one, they're in the process of writing the scope. So the projects will go forward, and then we'll come back to you if it's your pleasure to request a cost sharing on those.
Amy, if I may, let me just, so we've heard from Jonathan, we've heard from Rob, this, and they're fine with voting, then take, I guess then we take it to our, we're gonna take it to bigger board.
Right.
Anyway. Kevin Spears, you good with voting today? Recommend it to our board?
Yeah, I am good with voting today, but I am a little intrigued as to we'll pay for it and then we'll decide how we split the bill. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think the proposals I hear it would be to split it 3 ways. That would be.
Well,
our
that's
recommendation.
based on the motion, right? That's not how
Motion.
Amy.
Well, we haven't made a motion, we haven't made a motion.
Well, hold on a second, Neil. Just
Go
let me
ahead, Kevin,
talk.
go for it.
I
Can't hear you very well.
I can articulate for myself. Thank you. Amy. So
Yes.
the way we're looking at it right now is that going forward, we're gonna pay for it, and then we'll take a motion to say, okay, how we'll split it.
No, I'm not suggesting going forward that be the process, and that has not been the process in recent years. So for example, replacement of scoreboard and sound system, those come off the top of my head, where there was a vote taken first, and then staff took an appropriation to council, and those projects got completed after the appropriation was made. Because these are essential projects with safety and welfare at stake, my understanding is the Public Services Department felt like they had to move ahead on getting these projects done. And, you know, then Tom and I had a discussion that, well, these are really ones that also need to be brought to the Legion Stadium Commission. After we're concluded with this discussion, I had planned to talk about more longer term capital and how we might get ahead of that with a cost sharing strategy before those projects get programmed. Tom, does that capture your feelings?
Yes, and Amy, I'm thinking in the past, the cost sharing has been a third and a third and a third. And Mr. Chair and council members and commissioners, as you know, all of us are probably challenged with maintaining aging facilities, but this is one in particular that we felt we needed to go ahead and move forward. I've asked Amy specifically to bring this to your attention, as ordinarily through the routine matter of things, it would have been cost sharing in the similar way in the past. And I felt it would be inappropriate to bring it to your attention after the work was completed without ever mentioning it to you and giving you a chance to consider it.
Let's get it done.
I'd like to make another an additional comment to that. 2 points. It's the amount of usage. Does that factor into who pays how much? In other words, if the city's using it more than the county, or the other way around, do we factor that into the shares? The second point is, it's always important to remember that the county and the school system coming from the same pot of money. So if we do a third, a third, and a third, essentially the county would be paying 2/3, and the city would be paying 1/3. Now, I don't know if that's been an issue that's been raised in the past, but that's the reality, you know, where the money's coming from. And I just see by Amy's face that I just messed everything up, so.
Not at all. No, you raised a good point. The most recent projects that were cost shared were a third and a third and a third, but they were a third by the city, third by the county / schools, and a third by the private user, that being the Sharks. Because these are repairs that are occurring at the stadium.
Baseball. Oh, I'm sorry. Those are.
Those occurred at the baseball stadium, where we have a long-term private user tenant. At the football / soccer stadium, where these repairs are needed, we just have the semi-pro football team that's playing there 8 times a year. Likely does not have the capital to contribute. So seeing not an agreement from staff. And so again, it's up to the commission how they want to make a motion on how that's shared, but for context, you know, it's been the Sharks have been a part of that third.
That's clearly a pretty unique situation.
We're so blessed to have.
Without, I mean, the way it was gifted to us, it's hard to change it much, I guess. So But I mean, the school system uses it probably, 95, 98%.
Per the agreement, they use it a minimum of 70%, but they exceed that right now. Yes.
I see. So on usage alone, it really is used by the schools more than anybody else.
Oh, by far.
It's Hanover's everything to track, I guess. Yeah.
So then maybe that balances out this
That's-
third issue. Jonathan, you have a thought on that?
It is what it is.
And if I could just comment, my understanding from our staff is that the school has what we call first priority use of the facility. And so that's a big factor. And we know that there are other high school facilities that have to be maintained. We're just looking to continue the partnership to maintain that facility to a standard that New Hanover Public Schools, parents and users would be pleased with.
I mean, for me, I recognize the process of the county and the schools, but we're still separate entities or governments, and indirectly, directly, schools are getting some of the funding from the county. It is what it is. I mean, we've done this in the past when we did the fields at Legion Stadium was the third, and I think this is what it's going to be.
Tara, if you're still on the line, could you add your thoughts on this as well? You've been down this road way more times than I have.
Sure.
No.
I mean, I think what Commissioner Barfield said is historically been the case. I mean, the city pays a third, the school system pays a third, and the county pays a third. I would say outside of the use of the school use, the county's not using Legion. So I guess then the question just becomes kind of what we were talking about when it was a third, or the city, the county, and the private use. I mean, I guess that's really the philosophical decision that needs to be made is, are we partners on the bringing an amenity to people who live in New Hanover County and the city of Wilmington? Because outside of that private use, there's not other county public recreation use.
When I see this breakdown, from the numbers you've given us, Amy, it's combined for the two projects, the stucco stabilization and the HVAC, it works out to $207,000 is how I see it. Divide that by thirds, so that's $69,000 per entity. But if the county and the schools are the same, it works out to $138,000 for the county / schools and $69,000 for the city. The justification for that is, as we just said, is the counties or the school system is 70% of the usage of Legion Stadium. So I think just on a fairness that seems to line up with what I'm hearing. I can't believe I'm saying this. We're paying a lot more, but it seems to make sense in this particular situation.
Well, 70 is the minimum. I bet it's closer to 98.
No, of course,
But yeah, but yeah, I think pick a number. I guess it's tough. That's why we're trying to get some better handle. Add to that, I mean, I've been on this thing now for I've lost track, 10, 11 years, and it's still a little.
Oh yeah.
Swishy.
Well, I guess I was just trying to bring some clarity for Amy's sake, so that we can move ahead. Again, as a builder, if somebody tells me we've got falling stucco, I want the contract signed tomorrow, so that we don't end up with busted up cars or, God forbid, somebody getting hurt. So whatever we can do as a commission or a committee here to speed those specific things along, I'm all for. And also, again, we're just starting to get into the hot parts of the season. I cannot imagine being in that house, in the training house without air conditioning. I just can't imagine being putting, a group of athletes, whether it be a baseball team or a lacrosse team or a football team, in there with their own body heat on top of the radio. That's crazy. Don't want to dress outside, the field house as opposed to inside. So I think they're two important issues that have a certain amount of urgency. And, if the numbers are good, it sounds like we've gotten bids. I don't know that we can't try to come to an agreement here, at least in principle. I know that we all have to take it back to our respective, council and commission to get final approval, but just trying to help speed things along, right?
So my question is this, Rob, are you still proposing the third, a third, and a third? Because you got kind of tricky there when you said the county is basically paying the school system's portion.
Right.
And does the school system not operate as its own entity? Because I do believe earlier Amy mentioned that as it relates to how this agreement works, the city's not recouping what they're investing. Amy, am I right or am I wrong? Or
That's
Tom,
right.
you on the, yeah, so let's not get kind of caught up in the appearances of things, because in all honesty, the city is taking a loss.
Kevin, if I can jump in here, I believe it's two separate issues we're talking about. One is these two physical projects, the stucco repair and the HVAC, as separate from where we started this meeting, which was trying to create a number for maintenance, overall maintenance going forward. And that's the portion of this that has to be researched and come back. So that's not two separate things. That's under one main thing, and that's the partnership that has us here. Well, that's how I feel about it. So there's a partnership that even has us sitting at this table, being in this commission. And so if if you're saying, hey, we're the county and we pay the school system's portion, and so we don't feel like it shouldn't be 2/3 and a third, I respectfully have to beg to differ. Kevin, I think, and I know that it's frustrating to have audio kind of dipping in and out. Where I came around to thinking was that the county would pay 2/3, in this case of the $207,000 to get these repairs done, and the city would pay 1/3. Well, yeah, that's what I just asked you. I asked you, were you still thinking a third, and a third, or let's just stick with the original arrangement and vote on that and go forward, or were you trying to deviate from the original arrangement? That's the question that I asked you. Kevin, I think that you got caught up in my convoluted thinking and trying to think it through. My wife accuses me of that quite a lot, so I apologize. I empathize with her. Well, where it ends up is the county and / schools are paying 2/3 and the city pays 1/3. Is that clear? Yeah, that's clear. And if that's the clarity provided, then Neil, I'm ready to move forward with it.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we go forward with a proposal with the county / schools being responsible for 2/3 of the cost of the, it looks like $207,000 for the two proposals that have been brought forward today.
Oh, Rob, I wouldn't lump the two. I would just say that this county with a third and the schools a third, because they've got to figure out where their money's coming from. So I wouldn't just automatically assume that we're responsible for what they're deciding, because they got to decide how they're using their own dollars, not us.
That's what I was saying, Mr. Barfield. Thank you for providing that clarity, sir.
We're not the school board's keeper. That's their job.
Yeah, Jonathan, what you're saying is, you know, it's, even though we provide the money for the schools, it's still up to them to figure out what pot, that they have to, bring to the table on this. Is that, am I hearing you right?
Well, your comment was is the county and schools will pay 2/3. And I don't want to confuse those two. So the county a third, the schools a third, the city a third.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, amend my motion, so we have a third, and a third, the county and the schools, and then the city to handle the cost share of this $207,000 has been brought forward, with the understanding that all three entities need to take this back to their respective boards to get permission to move forward.
Go second.
And I'll second that. And Tara, if you could again brief Chris and his team on all this. I got construction going on in my house. If you hear noise in the background, so excuse the noise.
I certainly will.
Motion by Mr. Zappel, and we have a second by Mr. Barfield. All those in favor say aye.
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 Oh, I have to do it one by one. I think I have to do it one by one. Sorry, guys. Mr. Zappel, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Spears, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Barfield, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. That's unanimous. Amy?
Thank you. So the other item that I had for new business, ironically talks about potential private play coming back to Legion Stadium after we just spent the last hour and whatever we're on, letting you know that that has, is barely occurring right now. I wanted to let you know that the city is in receipt from a verbal request from an investment group who has purchased two local investment group who has purchased two professional soccer teams. We do not have written proposed terms from them, but they have indicated that they would like to, at least in the short term, begin playing those games at Legion Stadium and potentially request a longer term agreement where in return they would provide new investments in capital into the stadium. So I was hoping to receive those terms by today. I have not. So it's my hope that once this commission's reconvened, we will have a written proposal that we can share with this commission.
Any of these men's teams or women's teams or both?
One men's team and one women's team, both in the United Soccer League, which is the premier professional league in the United States. The men's team would be a tier 3 team. The women's team would be the top tier team.
No idea what the tier 3 means. Is that a good or, I mean, more professional or less?
Tier 1 being the most professional, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 tiers. It's the same tier that the Charlotte men's team. Is it Charlotte now? They move around so much and these tiers change under USL all the time. It's the most, I say it's the best fit for a city of this size. The other cities that these teams are playing in would be comparable to our city. The women's team being the top tier is a bit of a surprise, but I suppose speaks to the market. But again, these teams have been purchased by local representation, and now they're looking for a place to play, and they would they're looking to start one team playing in 2023 and the other in 2024. They don't know which one they would slot in first.
And these are all professional, are the players paid?
Yes.
I mean, at this point, I think it's mostly just, I mean, you might have some of these constituents of ours won't even start talking to me about it.
Yeah.
It's just really more just
Information.
information, you know, they come back with something, then we'll dig it.
Right. Again, I've asked for a conceptual schedule, given that New Hanover has priority scheduling, and other key proposed terms and what sort of investments they'd be interested in making into the stadium. So right now, I'm just working off of one conceptual meeting with them, but the interesting part is that they've already purchased the team, so we're looking not just in the city of Wilmington, but in the region.
Is this the Hammerheads or a version of the Hammerheads?
The Hammerheads are providing, I guess, professional consultation. I'd imagine maybe they would go with the Hammerheads as the title of the team, but it's completely separate ownership than the last group. But as Mr. Anderson points out, interestingly, it is local.
Yeah. So is there any action being
No,
requested?
I think that Mr. Anderson put it well, that you may start to hear things here and there, and so I didn't want you to find out from Port City Dale.
All right. Is that all the new business today?
It is.
Then I guess we want to set a date, if we want to try, or I guess we really need to wait for y'all to get as much as, or do we want to set a real safe one, like?
It was my hope that we would set one today, but given that we don't have either of the school board members here, I think it's probably best just to not try and set one today, and I'll reach back out to everyone via email.
Okay, I think that's probably wise. And plus, but y'all get your numbers together. Don't want to, during budget season, we're all gonna have a lot of meetings, so. All right, well, do any of the members have anything they want to bring to the board's attention?
Tara, I'm gonna call you in about 3 minutes, if that's all right.
We're
Not Tara, but not Tara, but Amy.
You want to call me?
Yeah, in about 3 minutes, if that works for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, if no one has anything else, then I'll make a motion to adjourn. Give me a second. Second. Oh, I gotta get through this. Great. Okay, let's start with Mr. Spears. How do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Barfield,
Aye.
Mr. Zapple,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all for being here. Great.
Thank you.
I've read this thing. Who gave it to us? The Army, the Legion? I mean, how?